I never really understood why Vikings were so violent and tenacious, especially when they have to fight ruthless giants with magical murder powers. This is all Jotun is about, but I guess that's a pretty blatant way to describe it. Let me try again. Jotun is an explorative adventure game set in the ridiculously confusing world of Norse mythology. You play as Thora, a super burly Viking lady that apparently is a descendant of Thor. Thora died a shameful death, and in order to redeem herself, she must traverse the realms of the Jotun and kill them to impress the gods, which sounds pretty messed up. But that's basically the synopsis for most of the mythologies I've heard of. When I call Jotun an explorative game, I'm not putting that lightly. Either you'll like to explore, or you'll be bored to death. After getting past the introductory realm, you get sent to the primordial void that is Ginnungagap. From here, you have options. Since the main objective of the game is to hunt down the Jotun, you get to select the order in which you get to dismember their massive, ugly faces. There are 5 realms, including the introductory realm, and each of these areas house at least 2 or 3 regions. You choose a region to explore and find the rune within them, and once you have all the runes for that realm, the Jotun invites you to a nice house party, where one of you is going to die. The formula for these regions play out like this. You enter, progress through a pretty sizable area while fighting enemies, solving puzzles, or beating the environment, and you find the rune. You can pick up a health extension in most regions, as well as a power from the gods, or at least an extension to the power you already have. Unless you want to go out of your way to absorb the stunning scenery with your face, these are the only reasons to explore. Thankfully, you won't actually want to miss this scenery, because it's absolutely beautiful. The hand-drawn universe of Jotun is some of the sexiest game art I've ever seen, and this is no exaggeration. Colors pop out your looking balls, and it's pretty hard to look away. The game feels like a storybook you can walk through, an interactive cartoon, every 3-year-old's dream. These techniques used to convey a sense of immensity within the world is just magnificent. The regions feel so expansive, and the Jotun look like they can sneeze and destroy your entire family. That's how great it is. It's pretty great. In addition to that alluring visual atmosphere, the game has some sound design that makes my dead gerbil I had when I was 5 quiver in awe. You can feel the game in your neck when you hear how it sounds. That escalating sense of wonderment when you open the gates to a Jotun's house, the reverberating intensity when you subsequently kill them, feels so satisfying. It really makes you wonder how this game could have any sort of flaw. It snaps my heart to say that there are a couple pretty major issues. First of all, the regions you have to explore are all adequately varied, but that doesn't change the fact that there's not much you can get out of them. I understand that the game is not supposed to be humongous, but the only reason I ended up repenting any exploration in this game is simply because Thora walks slower than an amputated tortoise. When you die, you respawn back at the last well you activated, or at the beginning of an entire region if you haven't activated any wells. While the exploration is pleasant at first, it becomes a tedious effort to trudge through the exact same terrain, completing the exact same objectives, hoping to get a little further without suffering the same fate. While the game isn't necessarily difficult, there are a couple of surprises and unexpected causes for death that will make you hate it, at least for a little while. The obstacles in each region are there to provide a challenge, but it shouldn't be as punishing as it is. Slowly pacing through the same place because you thought you weren't going to get hit by that lava isn't a fun thing to do. Ever. On top of that, the size of these regions are a little inconsistent. Some places take a while to get through, and some of them are just in and out. Trying to find the hidden power-ups are often not worth the trouble of going through the area, expending the time it takes to walk anywhere, because Thora walks so slow. So slow. Another large issue is the combat. Jotun's fighting system is unfortunately rudimentary, and that is an irreparable downside. You have a basic attack, a strong attack, and that's the gist of it. The powers you can collect offer some remediation and variety, but that's not enough to make the combat interesting, and more importantly, fun. Fighting enemies generally consists of hitting them, and that's the extent of it. This breaks the immersion, as it is just painfully wasteful of such a great foundation, graphically and auditory. It is a rinse and repeat task, and it was the worst part of the game for me, following the glacial pace of the traversal. If there were any sense of fluidity within the combat and movement, this game would be entirely amazing. It's unbelievable how they were able to make such intense boss battles out of such a forgettable combat system. I very much enjoyed striking down the massive warriors, even though all it was doing was swinging an axe at their toes. The factor that appetizes the fights with the Jotun are the amazing soundtracks that play while having to elude so many dangers at once. The escalation of these fights are perfect, and when you get to a certain point in any of these fights, you feel the difficulty overwhelm you, which is great. Contrary to the unimaginative combat, these boss battles are grand, well distributed, challenging, and fun. Having such great art direction, coupled with the unforgettable sound design, are the only redeeming factors here. Sadly, this is faltered by terribly bland combat and a repetitive progression in the game's movement. If you thoroughly enjoy wonderful game art and a stupendous atmosphere, and don't mind doing this very, very slowly, Jotun has some stuff to entice you. This is not a game for everyone, and is no way a terrible game, but some important aspects are sadly carried by the more prominent elements. I give Jotun a 3 out of 5. Hey look, we have previous videos. Want to see them? Subscribing makes that so much easier, and liking this video makes it easier for us to provide more of those awesome previous videos. Go ahead and do that. It's a win-win situation. Come on.